Welcome back to the Legislative Lounge. I am your host, Natebige. I want to just welcome in my co-host, Mike Bales, with us today. Mike,
What's going on, Nate?
Not much, man. Just living the sunny life here in Texas. How's Arizona?
It is getting very hot. I don't like it. I need to come to Texas.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice today in Texas. I think this morning when I was at my daughter's soccer game, it was only about 75 degrees and lightly breezy, sunny sky. So it's a beautiful day here today.
Yeah, it was 99 degrees when I was driving to work yesterday.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of information that's been happening over this last week. I know last week we took off just because you were traveling, visiting, family and whatnot. So we got two weeks worth of information, but I mean, just this last week alone has been crazy, has it not?
Oh yeah, I mean, even just what we found out this morning, you and I.
Yeah, I know. I mean, when it comes to legislation being passed, when it comes to SCOTUS rulings, it comes to even a lot of fraud being uncovered in campaign finances and whatnot. I mean, you could really start from anywhere. I mean, but one of the biggest things, since we are the Legislative Lounge, is the SAVE Act. Now, there's a lot of information going into the SAVE Act. This did pass the House. If you're not familiar with the bill, what it does is it's going to federally require each state to have individual voters provide proof of citizenship when they go vote in federal elections at their local voting registration or whatnot. But Mike, give us a little bit more information on it.
So I'm pretty sure everybody has filled out an I-9, which if you've had a job, you fill out an I-9, which is an employment verification form. And basically it just requires you to provide a verification for your citizenship. And it gives you a column A, column B, and C. And, the SAVE Act runs along that same line of documentation verification. And this is what a lot of people are getting a little bit freaked out about. And we've seen it online with social media. A lot of people are spreading misinformation as it pertains to women. I know you've seen that, Nate.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people, even on the right, that have questioned this bill about the validity of whether or not a married woman that recently got married can properly verify her information for voting registration, which is just ludicrous all in itself, just because of the mere fact that the database itself that it's going to create can confirm who you are. I mean, there's a plethora of different information that you have that you can provide, and it details it out very well within the bill itself in Section 2 of the bill. And like you just said, it's basically everything that you have to provide in an I-9. So ladies, if you're out there and you're worried about getting married and your name changed, like the fear-mongering of the left is doing, especially like people here in Texas, Jasmine Crockett and others that are just blasting this all over social media and the news as they're giving interviews, don't worry about it, because it's the same process in which you would have to do with your workplace. There's literally no difference between getting a name change and updating it on your tax information with your workplace as it is to register. It doesn't make it any harder because you're doing the exact same process.
100%. And I'll say the only difference, there is one minor difference between an I-9 and the SAVE Act, and that's the driver's license. And I do believe an I-9 will now eventually move into require the same constraints as the Real ID Act of 2005, which was pushed to be accepted in May of this year.
Right.
And so if you're going to be, and another thing for those that are listening, if you're going to be traveling on an airplane or any type of international travel, you're going to need an identification card that conforms to the Real ID Act. So you'll know you have this card if you look on your driver's license and you see a little star in the right-hand corner. So
right, and I mean, and that's for
affect May.
Yeah, and that's going to be for all forms of travel here soon, because you have to provide documentation that matches who you are to even take a train nowadays, it seems like, especially when you're going through any kind of form of TSA or any kind of verification process to move about the country, right? So that's what I don't get about the Democrats like Jasmine Crockett and AOC and all these other people. I think I've seen Elizabeth Warren talk about it, and even some of the gentlemen in Congress as well on the left that are just pushing this out as if they're making it impossible for not only women, but minorities as well, because they're back on that mantra again where, oh, minorities don't have the direct access to, providing the information in getting an ID card, which I don't understand that, because in all reality, my mom, like I say, most people know, is of the minority group. She had no problem getting, an ID her entire life. She had to have it federally because she was a nurse for 30-something years, and she had to have documentations and all this other stuff. So this nonsense that people of brown and black skin can't get or have the proper access to getting even a state ID, it's just nonsense. And honestly, it's a lot of race baiting and racial motivation behind it, honestly, because when you look at it, it's like, are you saying that they're too incompetent to get to a DMV or whatever their state has, a Secretary of State, depending on which state you're in? Like, what is the real meaning behind that, honestly?
It's the continuing narrative to push societal divide, and it works. You have people that are so susceptible to misinformation and BS that it works. It divides us. Again, the SAVE Act, it's 26 pages long, if I'm correct, and nobody will go and read it. And you and I made a few videos on it last year when it first came out,
right?
And now we're making videos on the same information again because people will not take the time to go read it.
And that's the problem with America today, and that's why there are so many Americans that are so worried about the SAVE Act, is because they simply do not read, or they lack the capacity to understand what they are reading, because they try and maneuver words and make things out of portions of the bill that have nothing to do with what they're talking about. Like I came across an individual that was saying that you're gonna be required to have a passport to be able to vote or register to vote. Well, that leaves me out, because I've never had a passport in my entire life. So I'm like, are you saying that I'm not going to be able to go vote because I don't have a passport? What kind of nonsense is that?
Well, it's funny, right? Because we go back to the I-9, and just like on the SAVE Act, if you look at them side by side, especially where the section on the SAVE Act where it says acceptable forms of ID for verification, you look at them side by side. The first form of ID that's good for verification on both is a passport. Now, the next one down is, for the SAVE Act, is an identification card that conforms with the Real ID Act of 2005. And then on the I-9, in column B, it's a driver's license and a social security card, so you would need two. Anybody that's had a job knows this process.
Right. When you're actually looking at the bill itself, in Section 2, ensuring only citizens are registered to vote in elections for federal office, Part B of it says documentary proof of United States citizenship. And this is exactly what it says right before it goes into the list of documentation. It says, as used in this act, the term documentary proof of a United States citizenship means, with respect to an applicant for voter registration, any of the following. And then it goes into, I believe, I think it was about 15 different types of verification proof. Your birth certificate, an ID, when it comes to naturalization certificates, a secular report of birth abroad, if you're, born to a military person that's outside of the United States. I mean, there's a laundry list and a final adoption decree. There's a number of different items on this to where you can be able to register to vote. So just the nonsense push narrative needs to be come to light for people in America, because you guys need to realize that these people in office are blatantly lying to you to fearmonger for your vote. thinking as if they're doing something for you when all they're actually doing is lying to you, and you need to realize that.
100%. And you saw the video I made yesterday. I said, if you think I'm wrong, just read the bill. I would love for everyone to challenge me, because it's going to get you to read. If I can get you to read, then I've done my job.
I mean, it's the part of the bill where it specifically says any of the following that gets me the most, and then they stop at number 1, which is your passport. It's like, y'all do know that it continues down, right? There's another, 12 to 14 different verification items on there that you could, why did you stop right there and just oh, see, that's the rest of it.
What's interesting, is in this bill, it doesn't say anything about sex or gender or race.
Yeah, that was a whole nother thing of it. People are again, they're just talking about pushing the mantra of, minorities are too incompetent, apparently, to go to the DMV or Secretary of State or take a bus, for God's sakes, to get downtown to get their ID for some... I mean, what is this? Do you think that just people that are in the minority are dumb or something? Because that's the only thing I can take away from this.
They do. And it's this is 2025. Everybody, if you're an adult, if you are 18 years of age and older, and you have a problem getting an ID, you probably don't need to vote.
I mean, it makes a perfect picture. If you remember, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, I believe she's the governor or she's the mayor of New York City, one of the two. I can't remember.
One of those two. Yeah,
one of those two. She had said that Black Americans in suburbs, specifically, I think she was talking about black men, don't know what a computer is, let alone how to use it. And then you see videos of black guys all over social media just be acting like they're primal, essentially, looking at the computers, tapping it. And so I was like, that is the perfect understanding of how stupid these statements are. Because you're literally insulting people based off of the color of their skin or maybe their background. It's absolute racism to its core, and people don't want to call it out because, they're supposed to be the champions of minorities, even though they're the most racist in most times.
I could have believed that. I would have believed that statement that she made for a lot of people, not skin color, but a lot of people if we were in the 90s.
All right. I mean, it's just...
But it's 2025.
Even, in the 90s, sure, because the internet didn't even come out, big until, the late 90s in itself. So almost, pretty much nobody had a computer well into the early 2000s, let alone, knew what even the internet was. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, in 2000, 2001, 2, 3, I was in, 4th, 5th, 6th grade-ish. I had no idea what the internet was at that age, but now, my kids are in the other room on the internet, and one of them's 5, so...
Yeah, I remember when you had to download the internet and install it into your computer.
I don't understand, but then, these are the same people that you have to take a really good look at. Now, I'm not saying this is just one side, because we see it on both sides about... fraud in regards to their campaigns, right? It was just recently announced that Jasmine Crockett, which is why I'm going to bring her up because she's here in the state of Texas on the south side of Dallas. It's been announced as of March 26th, I believe, and she was notified on the 2nd of April that an FEC violation filing has been put forth on her, which if you're not familiar with what that is the Federal Election Commission. They're the ones that monitor the money coming in and going out on campaign finances. And there are laws around what you can and can't do, how much somebody can and can't give, and how much even companies can and cannot donate, right? And so the problem is this big mysterious Act Blue. If you're not familiar with what Act Blue is basically the primary financing pact of the Democratic Party right now, and they have been under scrutiny for a litany of years now, it seems like, which is what's
time.
I mean, it's not even about time. We've known about this since the last election of the first election of Donald Trump back in 2016, which is why I don't understand why it's taking so long for them. But
they've got to, I have a little conspiracy hat to throw on this.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I know I want you to get through it all, but I just want to say I bet you this is like a subsidiary of Soros.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you take a look at the actual companies that are diving into it. But anyways, what ActBlue is, like I say, they're one of the primary financiers of most Democrat candidates. And what they do is they're basically a campaign finance donation center, essentially, is the easiest way to explain it, right? People can donate to individual candidates, or they can donate to PACs like ActBlue, and they divvy out to individuals that are associated with them, which is typically all Democrats, right? The Republicans have smaller things like this, but ActBlue is probably one of the biggest donation PACs on either side, honestly. Mm-hmm. And the problem with them is that they've been finding numerous donations that are either replicated or they've been donated so much by one individual to where they either weren't aware of it or didn't know of it whatsoever of how much. They may have donated one time, but yet their name comes up multiple times. For instance, in this particular case with Jasmine Crockett, there was a filing against her on March 26th, more specifically towards an individual here in the state of Texas that was supposedly donating to her through ActBlue. But this individual wasn't aware of it whatsoever. However, his name comes up 56 times as a donation to her. Now, the amount, it's like, I think it only totaled to like $600 total over those 56. But the problem is, this isn't the first time that we've seen ActBlue doing this. If you all remember a couple years ago, if you're not familiar with it, a gentleman that was a part of Project Veritas, Mike, you remember his name? James O'Keefe. There we go. James O'Keefe came to me. Yep. He did a massive scale reporting on this. If you're not familiar with who James O'Keefe is, he was part of Project Veritas until he was ousted there and created OMG, reporting media or media, something like that. He's an independent journalist that goes around, and uncovers a lot of information that a lot of people will deem as very damning, but it seems as though nothing ever takes place. Right, absolutely. And the reason is because back in 2022, he uncovered a massive fraud, and I'm going to call it money laundering, honestly, because when you break down the details of how they're doing it, it's straight up money laundering, essentially. Because, like I said, when you're donating per the FEC website rules and regulations and laws, you can only donate a certain amount, right? So what we've been seeing and what James O'Keefe uncovered is that there are multiple donations from a single individual that either they only donated once and weren't aware that there were a subsequent number of donations in their name, or the donator wasn't aware of it whatsoever or isn't even affiliated with the Democratic Party whatsoever, let alone ActBlue, which is what the case is here in the state of Texas with Jasmine Crockett, because her 2026 opponent, last name is Daniels, he actually went out to the individual. I'm not going to give his name, but his name is out there. I just don't want to give it out for privacy purposes. But if you're really interested in who it is, you can find his name real easily. But he went out to this individual and asked him questions. The guy said he wasn't aware of it whatsoever. He's not even affiliated with the Democrat Party.
Mm-hmm. That's wild. That's wild. And, between the fraud and the stuff that she's been saying on, during these campaign events or these town halls,
mm-hmm.
which, it's really interesting. Because the Democrats, you see it all over X, you see it all over social media, they complain about, now they're complaining about wasteful spending, but they have like 71 town hall events that are going to be occurring this year or something like that. Some insane number of town hall events. I can't imagine how much that's going to cost the American people.
Well, I mean, they have a way around it because Act Blue knows just how to launder this money, obviously, because they're taking large donations. What I'm seeing, when you look at the numbers, and I've dived into them on actblue.com and the FEC website as well, what more than likely is happening is they're taking large donations from individual PACs and whatnot, or large companies, or just people that want to donate more. Like the billionaires and the millionaires that they claim need to pay their fair share, even though over 97% of them donate to the Democratic Party. But we'll leave that out for a sec. Another conversation. But they're taking that and they're applying it to individuals that either have had some kind of donation in the past or registered for something, and they use their name. Because when you look at the traces of where they're coming from different locations. They're not all coming from the same one, which is weird because you and I, everyday Americans, aren't going to have 6, 7 different, accounts or places where we can donate money from. That's just not normal. So it's quite clearly money laundering in a specific standard.
Yeah, I think this is also I personally see it as a campaign violation because...
Oh, it absolutely is.
Since Donald Trump has been in office, you've seen basically the entirety of the Democrat Party, multiple members just going around the country basically campaigning against Donald Trump while he's president, increasing social division.
I mean, what was the main purpose of them filing charges in the state of New York against? What were they going after Donald Trump about in the state of New York? The 34 counts. Campaign fraud violations, right? Getting donations outside of the actual rules and laws of the FEC, and especially when you apply it to people that aren't even aware that they're donating, that is absolute fraud, and anybody in violation of it should be put in jail. Because in all reality, that's what you went after Donald Trump for, was campaign fraud violations.
Yeah.
But yet...
I mean, it's wild that we see all this fraud, and there's so much talk about fraud and waste, and I think I really hope they do keep Jasmine Crockett and AOC as the face of the Democrat Party. I really hope they keep them as the face because they're doing nothing but helping us.
Yeah, what was it? Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana, just my absolute favorite senator, congressional member at all, said it best this week, Mike. I don't even know if you saw it, but there was like a little town hall of Republican senators, and he was asked about what he thought about AOC, and he said the exact same thing you just said, is that he hopes that they stay as the spokespeople of the Democratic Party, because how he views AOC is she's the reason we have instructions on shampoo bottles.
Yeah, he's what do you say? He called it mission letter talk.
Letter talk, yep. Because every time they speak, it's just nonsense.
I don't know if you've been keeping up on Doge, Nate.
A little bit here and there.
Doge just found almost $400 million in fraud. That had to do with unemployment payments that have been occurring since the year 2020.
I did hear a little bit about this. Tell us about it.
Now, you know how Democrats like to say that red states rely on blue states, and red states are welfare states?
Uh-oh.
So, Doge found almost $400 million in fraudulent unemployment payments, and majority of that fraud came from California, New York, and Massachusetts.
Wow. I mean, there's a common theme between those three states, but...
Yeah. 68% of the improper payments came from California.
And California is the loudest and proudest of saying, oh, we produce the most GDP, while completely ignoring the fact that you have the most debt as well.
Yeah, and if you look at these three states, California, New York, and Massachusetts, it's completely blue from the House, from the state houses and the state senates and the governor. They're all blue as can be.
Well, I mean, going back to even your narrative, the narrative of the red states, they take up the most when it comes to federal funding. First of all, that's false. Like, we already know that the most subsidized state in America is California. It's not even close, right? And then Texas comes in at like third or fourth or something like that. But it's just, when you even look at the states that a lot of people like to associate as being the poor states that get the federal funding, you know, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, you know, the redneck states, quote unquote. But in all reality, when you look at the funding that goes into those and where it's allocated, what city, it's always the large blue cities.
Mm-hmm. But when you look at this, it's tens of thousands of recipients getting unemployment payments that are above the age of 115 years old or between the ages of 1 and 5 years old.
Wow.
Or even those that aren't even born.
I heard about the 115. There was like, what was there? There was like 50. They were saying that there was some odd tens of thousands of people that were of the age of 115.
People that are 115 years old in this country, apparently.
I don't think there's a single recorded individual that's 115 here in America right now.
If we have 25,000 people that are that age, I think we should, RFK should take a look at that fluoride. It might be doing some good for us.
It seems like it. I don't know if America's even ever had somebody that age. I mean, I know we've had, you know, a couple over the 100. I think we do have currently a couple that are over the age of 100, but 115 is kind of insane. I mean, I know they have them abroad, but
I bet you it was a woman.
Yeah, that's true.
Women live longer than men because, you know, men are dumb.
I guess that's what they say. But I know the world's oldest individual right now is a man from India, but, you know, we're not going to talk about that.
I'm not trying to get the doghouse already.
But going further into this, I know that, you know, Trump has been seeing a lot of movement in a lot of different ways. I mean, from, you know, trade deals to the stock market to number of wins in the Supreme Court this week. It's been phenomenal for him, honestly, and his administration.
Let's talk about the stock market a little bit.
Oh, Lord, you gotta love it when, you know, and I made a video about this on social media, and it definitely rubbed the wrong people the wrong way. And I've been getting stitches and comments and all this other stuff on my videos. Like, I love how it's the individuals that are poor, that are educated, have a college degree, that are acting as if they're stock experts and tariff experts, but yet just a few months ago they were begging for money to pay off their student loans.
Listen, those you be nice to those people who spent $80,000 on those pieces of paper.
Look, I didn't finish college because, first of all, I saw that it was completely waste of time for what I was going to be doing anyways. But when you look at the stats, right now in America, only 52% of people, 52% of college graduates don't even work in a job that requires a degree. And 75% of those stay in that job for over a decade. And then you have individuals that have a master's degree, right? Master's degree, the average wage of a master's degree annually is around $90,000 a year. I know a number of people that have no college degree whatsoever. Their average is well above that, including mine. And I don't have a college degree at all. I don't have associates or nothing. I make well above that.
Yep. You know, whenever I have a conversation about tariffs, before we even debate the efficiency of them, I ask, what exactly is the definition of it? What kinds of tariffs are there?
I mean, they can answer the basics.
And what are Incoterms? Those are the three main things that you must know in order to have a conversation in tariffs with me.
Right. I mean, and a lot of people come back at us and be like, well, what's your education? I was like, didn't I just prove to you that education, just because you paid tens of thousands of dollars for a piece of paper to memorize books that I can buy secondhand for a couple $100 online, which, yes, you can. I'll show you the websites if you don't believe me, because I had to prove it to somebody. It's like all the books that you get in college stores and you pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for one particular book, I can buy for $50 to $100 online and read the same exact thing you're reading, and you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for a class on it. Like, who's smarter here, honestly?
100%. And, I'm in college right now, Nate.
Right. I do. And you did that. You're in college right now because of your, being in the military. So you get a GI Bill. Hey, you went the smart route, honestly. I mean, personally, if you want to go to go to college and get a degree in a specific field. I mean, honestly, I think the best route is to serve in our military, and I honor all of them, no matter what your political affiliation is, because you're doing, a service to your country. And I believe that is something that should be done. And honestly, in connection to that, Mike, I'm not sure if you're aware, but here in the state of Texas, Ted Cruz actually just introduced a piece of legislation as a senator into Congress at the federal level to help benefit military families, and providing, what if passed and signed by the president, it would provide military families $6,000 per child to use for school of choice where they wanted to go for any kind of curriculum or supplies in that. And I think that's a great benefit. So the narrative of, the Republicans don't care about military families like they claim, is like every piece of legislation I see coming from them typically is always shot down by the Democrats, but it always benefits the military families in America. So I think we're having some technical difficulty because I don't think Mike can hear me any longer, but either way, going down the line, though, that we can look at a couple different other information as well. Like I say, Trump has been seeing a record number of wins in the Supreme Court over this last week. He's had 3 different wins in regards to the SCOTUS rulings. When it comes to the administration doesn't have to comply with lower courts order directing to rehire thousands of fired temporary employees. So that was a huge one. Which, again, me and Mike both. Honestly, we already predicted that these were going to come down because these lower courts, these circuit courts or district courts, have no actual jurisdiction constitutionally to tell the president what he can and cannot do, because honestly, that is something that the Supreme Court can only do constitutionally. But another one that is lifted an order barring the administration from using the Alien Enemies Act to deport suspected criminals and gang members that were here in the United States illegally. So that's another big win as well. And then also, when it comes to SCOTUS, another win for him was it allowed the administration to proceed with plans to freeze funding for teacher training when it comes to DEI cases. So it eliminates that, which is another thing, because at that point, that's a federal level. That funding comes from the Department of Education, which is headed by the executive branch, which is the head of that is the President of the United States. So when an executive order comes down, that means that, that's the president saying yes or no to funding in regards to what is under his jurisdiction. And again, these courts are acting outside of their capacity, and nobody actually knows it, but the people that are in the administration, which is why there's so many counter lawsuits to them, acting as if there is some kind of charge over the president, when in all reality, the Constitution is quite clear. Nobody has say over him outside of Congress and the Supreme Court. Sorry, not sorry, but that's the reality of it. So, but in regards to the stock market, that's a huge one. There's been a lot of talks about the stock market lately and what's been going on with trades and everything going on there. I know a lot of people have been kind of worried about, their 401ks and all this other stuff. But in all reality, if you're not retiring within the next 2 to 4, 5 years, stop worrying about your 401k. First of all, if your 401k is your primary source of retirement, you're probably never going to retire unless you're overdosing your contributions to an amount that doesn't make any sense. Because honestly, if your company doesn't have a match, there's no point in even investing into it, because there's a much better plans like Roth IRAs to begin with. But I mean, that's just base level investments. I mean, there's so many more annuities and other capacity of financing your future retirement outside of a 401k through your work that are so much better and so much more beneficial in the end. And in the grand scheme of understanding the stock market itself, it's one of those things where the left completely ignores what's happened in the past, like 2024 in the past, right? We've said it numerous times on the show that, you know, they sit here in the grandstand saying, oh my God, Donald Trump's tanking the economy because of the stock market. First of all, the stock market doesn't have any indication of what is going on with the economy. I mean, you don't believe me? You can take Biden's administration. Two separate occasions that they specifically, the press secretary, Jen Psaki, she said in 2022 that the president doesn't use the stock market to evaluate the strength of the economy. That's a verbatim quote from her back in 2022. And it was even stated last year in September by the Biden administration directly, and I believe Biden himself, when there was that massive drop back in August, September time. So we could sit here and continue to say that, you know, the stock market is crashing, blah, blah, blah. We're on the brink of a recession. That's just not the truth, honestly. It's just not, because in all reality, like I say, the stock market does not reflect the state of the economy in any way or shape or capacity. It just doesn't. All it is investments from mainly rich people, right? Which is why people, I don't understand why people are freaking out. Oh, there's $4 trillion that was lost in the stock market. So you're saying that the people that you're complaining about needing to pay their fair share lost money? That doesn't really make any sense to me, guys. Like, what are you actually complaining about in all reality? Because if your whole mantra is to tax the rich and, you know, screw the rich, get rid of the rich, rah. Like, you should be applauding the fact that they just lost trillions of dollars, because you and I didn't lose anything like that. They lost trillions of dollars, not us. But yet we want to sit here and we want to complain about the stock market makes, you know, and all this nonsense. But in all reality, what Trump's doing with the tariffs in the grand scheme of things is absolutely what needs to be done. And I had an argument with this with somebody else before. He's like, well, you know, why didn't we do this in the past? I was like, I don't know. That was the entire point of what Donald Trump is doing. Because when you look at the global scale of economics, you'll start to understand that we have every card that we need to completely say, nah, y'all gonna do what we want to do, or else, you know, sorry. Because in all reality, we are the absolute largest consumer in every single market. We control everybody's economy from top to bottom. I mean, even China, right? We make a large portion, the largest portion of China, of their economy. And I think it's roughly around 20-25% of their total exports comes to us, which is a huge portion when you take into factor they've got a trade deal with literally every other country, right? So we take up a massive portion, and we already saw the effects on it, right? When Donald Trump implemented the 100% tariff on China, it really made a huge bang in their market, because their stock market in Shanghai completely obliterated. It just went boom, straight down. And they came back and tried to hit us with tariffs, and they've gone back and forth basically on this, right? Now we're sitting at 145% tariff on China because of their retaliatory. But it's forced them to the table at this point. And it was just announced maybe a couple hours ago that Donald Trump, he put out a tweet or a truth or whatever it is on his social media platform, whatever you call it. He said good things are about to come from China. So I know that there's been conversations and with China, and specifically I believe it's their treasury minister. He had come out just a few days ago after this back and forth, and the 145% was placed on them, and said, yeah, we're open to talks. But of course, the pride of China had to puff his chest out and be like, well, as long as you come to us with mutual respect and there's a win-win situation. It's like, that was the entire point. You guys have been screwing us in the trade for decades now. That was the entire point of Donald Trump, is that there needs to be mutual respect, because you clearly don't respect us in the trade game. And you haven't been giving us an actual a fair trade for numerous decades now. Mike, you back with us?
I believe I'm having some connection issues.
Oh, you're good, man. We can hear you now. So I'm just going on about the market right now, and honestly, there's a lot of good things coming out of it, because when Donald Trump started to implement this tariff, a lot of people freaked out, right? but it's forced over 70, I think it's over 80 now, as of this morning. There's over 80 different countries that have come to the table to Donald Trump almost immediately, honestly, and said, hey, we don't want these tariffs. What do we got to do? Let's make a new deal. And some of them, like Vietnam, are coming to the table with 0 for 0 tariffs, which is phenomenal because we get a lot of our apparel, shoes, things like that from Vietnam. A lot of it comes from there. So seeing that, along with this whole narrative around the 90-day pause, a lot of people are sitting here saying, oh, Donald Trump caved. He caved on the tariffs. Like, no, he didn't. If you actually listen to the Treasury Secretary and the White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, the other day when that happened, they both indicated that the reason why this is put is because the exact words were, we're operating in good faith through the negotiations, meaning that these people have come to us and said, hey, we're willing to make a new trade deal with you so that way you can make it better for both of us, and even out the trade that's been so imbalanced for numerous decades, especially since NAFTA. Thank God that's gone and has been gone since like 2018, 2019. But what they're doing is they're allowing for those countries that are working within their good faith and giving them saying, hey, you're depending on what your trade deal is and what you come to the table with is where we're going to be. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, the tariffs are just removed completely against everybody because Trump folded. No, that's not the case. There's actually very few. I think there's 2 or 3 countries where the reciprocal tariffs have been removed completely, and that's because of their deal, like Vietnam coming to the table for 0 for 0. But all the rest of them still have a tariff on them, a reciprocal tariff. It's only 10%, though. But it's not 40, 50, 60% on some cases, or even 100 in certain situations. And because of that, it's allowed opening for a new trade. And the stock market knows that. That's why they made a massive dip. Now, these people are smart. And they're when they understand, oh, let's crash it so that we can make more money, right? But in all reality, a lot of people are saying, oh, there's insider trading with this. It's like, guys, if you take a look at it, the stock market was like, 43, 44 when it comes to the Dow, and it's only at 39. They haven't even recouped everything that they've lost. So I don't really understand how you're saying they're making trillions of more dollars when in all reality, we haven't even broke even yet. Mike, can you hear me okay? I think we're still having those connection issues, but that's okay. We'll get that figured out. And it's just gotten to the point where it doesn't make any sense to me for these people to continue to freak out, because even Donald Trump himself is saying that we're in negotiations with countries around the world to the point where the phone is ringing off the hook, which is only good for America. Because when you take a look at the information around, what happened to our manufacturing, because that's a big thing here in America, is manufacturing. NAFTA completely obliterated our manufacturing here in America, and it made it to where it was completely outsourced in a lot of different cases. Like, for instance, another one was in North Carolina, right? North Carolina, prior to NAFTA taking place, and at the beginning of NAFTA, it was known to be the hot spot for furniture manufacturing. Guess how much is there now? Absolutely none. It's almost zero. But yet it used to be the biggest state for furniture manufacturing across the nation. And yet, here we are with even into 2018, 2019, when the USMCA was put into place. You sit here and we can say to our allies in that trade deal of Canada and Mexico, they haven't even honored parts of it. I mean, they've been tariffing us 200-300% on certain items that are specifically in the USMCA. And yet, we saw an uptick until COVID hit, especially when it comes to the new trade deal that we had signed with China, who didn't honor it because of everything going on with COVID. But just imagine if COVID didn't happen, Donald Trump had his second term, he would have done what he's doing now then. And if it was 2025 now, we would see the benefits of huge upticks in our GDP, massive in investing into America like we're seeing, because we're nearly over $7 trillion of benefits or promised funding over plans of funding into America. You've got new manufacturing coming to America. Honda has talked about how they're expanding operations in the state of Indiana to invest, I believe it was like $5 billion into a complex to start a completely brand new EV line there. And then also they've teamed up with companies like LG Energy Solutions to invest over $3 billion to create a completely brand new factory of EV battery manufacturing that I believe the state of Louisiana. You have Toyota coming back. Ford has been talking about it, so we'll definitely see them back here eventually. You have investments from foreign countries. Apple has promised over $500 billion to be reinvested here in the state of Texas alone, which is going to expand employment just here in the state alone. It's estimated to be around 25,000 employment opportunities. So that's phenomenal for Texas in the Austin area. But it's just, when you take a look at this, you see people saying every expert is predicting that this is going to fall flat on its face and it's terrible for our economy and the consumer because it's a tax on us. It's like, then why does everybody else do it? Like, in all reality, think about it. Every single country in the world utilizes tariffs to an extreme that outweighs America drastically. I mean, the tariffs on us versus what we put on other people, it's not even for even. It's not 0 for 0, right? Or 10 for 10. I mean, China puts out, I believe it was like an average around 30% on us when we were only around 10 to 12% on average. And yet we want to sit here and we want to say, like, people like Canada, right, has a 25 or 27% tariff on us when we're only putting around, like, I think it was only like 3.5% total. And yet they're our allies, though, right? Like, if they were really our allies, they wouldn't be absolutely screwing us in the trade. That's just my opinion. But if tariffs are so bad for an economy and so bad for the population of the country, why does everybody else use them? It makes zero sense to me. But yet they'll try and, worm their way around the conversation rather than actually directly answering the question of, why does everybody else use it then? Why is it so bad for America, but yet so good for everybody else? It's the question that will never get answered, honestly, I think, and we're just going to have to be okay with it because we have so many questions that aren't answered on a daily basis coming from our government. It's just crazy to believe. I mean, from start to beginning, you're going to start to see massive overhauls of operations here in America. You're going to have manufacturing come back like we've never seen it before, and you're going to see an explosion of investments, new businesses, new products, because that's honestly what we're doing. That's what Donald Trump's trying to do with this whole trade thing is, like, you go to China, you aren't going to see a single product from America over there. We're trying to fix that because a lot of people are like, oh, well, America only, trades natural resources. That's because nobody else will take any of our products. They've refused in their trade deals to actually do anything outside of that, which makes no sense. Like, we're going to take your garbage from China, your cheaply made garbage, if you aren't willing to do any of our actual American-made products to be put over into your country. That's the imbalance here. Plus, we have a trade deficit with most of our major allies, right? Like Canada, for instance. They're our biggest trade partner in the world. And yet we're working on almost a $36 billion trade deficit. Makes no sense. Like, why are we sitting here saying that, oh, these are our biggest allies? Why are we treating them like an adversary? I've heard the statement numerous times. Oh, allies and adversaries all in the same. It's like, they all act the same towards us, so why wouldn't we? Honestly, in all reality, you got Canada over here in a larger trade deficit than most of the people that are in our in our trade agreements. So I can't really sit here and try and say that Canada is some great ally of ours when we fund their military, and they have an uneven trade with us. I mean, we're literally in a deficit with them, and yet you guys want to sit here and complain about Donald Trump trying to fix that, which will ultimately help America. People are like, well, it's the growing pains. There's going to be growing pains. We're $36 trillion in debt regardless, guys. Like, it doesn't matter. So I don't know what to tell you. But in the long run, by the end of summer, when all these trade deals, we've got 90 days. most of the trade deals are going to be done, if not all of the 75 to 80 countries that have contacted America will be done within that time frame, or else they'll get their tariffs put back on them. So that's why I say within that 90 days, by the end of summer, they're all going to be done, right? And it's going to be better off over the future for America because we'll obviously be taking more money in, we'll be able to reduce our debt, and be able to invest more into our infrastructure, into manufacturing, and all these other areas. Because people keep asking the question, what is Donald Trump's plan with the extra money from tariffs? I mean, he's answered it a million times directly, and I don't know why people keep asking the same question. He said the main focus is to use the extra money we get from the added tariffs to pay off the debt. And yet, he's the bad guy for that. And he's the only president in forever, basically, that's tried to do this. I'm not sitting here trying to, be an all of Trump, but what he's doing is absolutely good for our country. And if you can't see that, then you're just biased against him because the media told you so. I mean, if you actually look at the information and what's going on and understanding the buying power of the U.S. dollar in the world, you'll understand that we are in the power position with literally everybody. I mean, they do what we want or their economy crumbles. And they're starting to realize that, which is why most of them, I think it was 70 of them, called the same day that he implemented those. Mike, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, no, I can hear you.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
I can hear some other things. As far as China and Canada and their economy, have you noticed their economic pressures?
Oh, yeah. I know that Canada already, they folded and came to the table with Donald Trump, and now they're in talks.
Yeah. The entire premise behind these tariffs is a negotiative tactic, which I'm sure you've already covered. Mm-hmm. Though due to connection, I couldn't really hear. But it's a negotiative tactic. You put the level at such a high tier that it causes everybody to come to the table to renegotiate things that have been on the books for years as far as the commercial term of agreement is concerned. Because that's what an Incoterm is. It's an international commercial term of agreement or a contract. And the tariff is the duty within that contract that each party is obligated to fulfill.
Right.
So, and what's interesting is a lot of people that they think that this is almost unconstitutional what Donald Trump is doing, but it's not because Congress delegated that authority to him.
I mean, the Constitution delegates the tariffs to him.
Foreign policy is a constitutional duty of the president, and then when you look at Article 1, Section 8, that covers the legislative branch and their vested power for taxes and duties and whatnot. But there have been several bills in the 30s and then I believe in the 60s or 70s that basically redundant, but allowed that authority to continue with the president as far as deciding on tariffs.
Right.
And how they're applied. But like I said, this was just to get those countries to come to the table and renegotiate the terms of the agreement.
Right. Tariffs were never meant to stay in place. It was just a negotiation pressure because we already knew we had the power in the argument, right? Like nobody has any more power than us when it comes to trade because nobody buys nearly as much as us. And that was just basically forcing, like Mike said, just it's the enforcer of them to get to the table because that's what he wanted. He didn't want to say, hey, y'all come here so we can make this. No, he's like, get over here with the tariffs is what happened. So we're not doing this anymore. This trade imbalance, yeah, it's going bye-bye. And if you don't, then you're going to be paying for it.
The issue that Democrats are having is because they're not going to be able to cash in on that insider trading route that they were.
Right. And what's funny about that is There's a saying I've always said basically since I got into politics, is that the left never accuses the right of something they haven't already done. And what was the big thing as of Friday? Because Friday, if you weren't paying attention to the stock market, when the announcement of the 90-day stay to renegotiate the trade deals, the market jumped up almost 3,000 points, just the Dow alone, right? Which is a massive overhaul. Just so to put that in perspective, I think that's around $4 or $5 trillion added to the market that day, which is one of the biggest ever, I believe. And people are saying, oh, well, this is just an indication because Trump put out to say buy just the day before. And I was like, yeah, if you're smart, you buy at the low because you knew Donald Trump was working on these trade deals. You knew he was trying to force them to the table, so that you know that the market's going to rebound from that. You're the dummy for not reinvesting.
It was also Mike Johnson that said it, and it's not like this is some type of inside deal. He's telling the American people, if you have the ability, diversify your income, maybe buy some stocks because they're about to shoot way up. And that's a wonderful that's an advantageous route to take, especially when it comes to diversifying yourself. That way you're not just relying on one form of income. You can rely on 2 forms of income, 3 forms of income.
Right.
If you're an everyday American and you're going to get close to retirement, you only have a 401k, sorry, you're going to work for the rest of your life.
Right. That I don't think you heard me say that earlier, but see, it's the exact same thing I just said a minute ago when you were having the tech issues. And I was like, you can't rely on something that is so flawed like a 401k to think that that's going to take you into future. Because you got all these elderly individuals that had all those 401ks when they first came out and like, oh, they're great. Now they're door greeters at Walmart, guys. I just want to put that in perspective for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So... I mean,
these tariffs are going to lead us in a good direction. We have a 90-day opportunity of renegotiating with, I think at this point it's over 75 different countries.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the fruits of the labor. And like I said, like Nate said, we're going to see the big change in July.
Mm-hmm. Towards the end of the summer, yeah, you'll start to see massive increases in the stock market by the end of the year. That's my prediction, just because of the new trade is in full swing by the end of the year, beginning of next year. And it's going to be great because you're going to be seeing manufacturing explode. You're going to see tech explode, especially in the AI world. Love it or hate it, it's going to create huge markets here in America due to just the promised plans, or not even I hate saying that because it seems as though, to the left, they're all like, well, that's just a promise. Like, no, these are detailed plans that were given to the United States as a trade or an agreement upon, receiving specific tax incentives to invest into America. So it's going to take time to build infrastructure for these manufacturing plants, but specifically AI opportunities or, industries that create AI is going to absolutely explode here in America.
The auto industry is already making changes.
Oh, absolutely.
And, I just made a small observation the other night when I was watching television. The auto industry already changed. At least one of the big three, Chevy, Ford, Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
They already made a big change in their advertisement.
Right.
Now they're going towards a more American-made advertisement push forward. We are made in America. Nothing stops in America. It's pretty interesting advertisement reel that they're going with.
Don't you love how that you saw that narrative flip so quick in their commercials? And people don't pay attention to those small details like Mike and I do a lot of the times. And it's like, y'all really have to understand that these people know what Donald Trump's doing, and they're either afraid of it to the point where they're going to just be like, all right, daddy, basically, or they understand what he's doing is absolutely beneficial to them in the long run, which is why they've made this big move commercially, and they're like, oh, we're American made, bro, American tough again. But yet, where were you guys last year? Why weren't you American tough last year? Like, why is it all of a sudden?
Exactly. I don't know if you ever catch yourself noticing little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned it to Megan, and she was like, "Oh, whatever." And it's just stuff that because you and I have been doing this for years and years. It's just something I pick up real quick.
Right. Absolutely. And, over the next month or so, you're going to start seeing new trade deals, especially with Canada and China at the table now. It's a bright future. And when Donald Trump said that the golden age is upon us, honestly, I believe it, just taking a look at the trade deals or the trade information that's coming in and individuals that I personally know that are in that sector, like they're looking at the future as if it's bright for us, and just like it's a golden age. So I'm really excited to see what happens over the next, couple months, but more so in the next couple years, because that's when you'll see the real implementation of all these new trade deals come into play.
100%.
But
I don't know if you noticed, Nate, or if you covered it yet, but there was a couple of people arrested over this past week that made threats on Donald Trump's life again.
And see, here we are with the side of tolerance and acceptance. Only the side of tolerance and acceptance are the ones making, life-threatening on a sitting president, or even, in the past, a former sitting president, while he was back in June or July. And it's just astounding to me how many videos on social media I'm seeing where individuals are, they're not saying it, but they're doing that on purpose to, try and cover themselves in case, the law comes. That ain't gonna cover you, sweetheart, just so that you're aware.
Yeah. I mean, you have this gentleman that was charged in Butler, Pennsylvania, no less. The place where Donald Trump was shot last July.
Right.
He's a Pennsylvania man. His name's Sean Momper, 32 years old. He was charged with 4 counts of influencing, impeding, or retaliating against a federal official after he posted several comments on a multitude of YouTube videos threatening to kill or injure President Trump and ICE officials.
Yeah, I was just about to say, there's a gentleman in the state of Michigan, Warren, Michigan, to be exact. He was a realtor of some sort, and he made a huge video that went absolutely viral on literally every platform, basically telling everybody that if you see ICE agents, shoot them, saying that they're acting in a gang capacity. And I was like, yeah, that's going to come back to bite him. And guess what? Kristi Noem literally replied on his video, and guess where he is today? He was arraigned on Friday for charges of threats against federal officials. So,
and, there was also another gentleman. His name is 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗡𝗧. He was arrested by the FBI last night. He's 25 years old, out of Lilburn, Georgia, and he made life threats against Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard. And what's interesting, right, is Tulsi Gabbard has come under scrutiny because she owns a homestead in Texas, which under Texas law you can, and you can still hold your residency in another state. Just because you have a homestead in Texas doesn't mean you automatically switch your residency. So Tulsi Gabbard's residency is in Hawaii, where she was a congresswoman, and she voted and whatnot, and she created this. She got this homestead in Texas basically for anonymity, because she's the director of national intelligence, and there's a lot of threats against her.
Right.
Well, CNN just dismissed those credible threats, and then this came out.
Yep, and then the whole thing around that situation, because I heard about it as well before we wrap up here, is it doesn't make any sense to me, because there's a number of people. I believe that there was another individual that was just accused of doing that. I believe it was Elizabeth Warren, to be exact, where she has her residence, her primary residence. Don't quote me on the Elizabeth Warren, honestly. I think it was her. I was reading the story about late last night. So. But it was somebody big name like her. And she had her, or they had their primary resident outside of the state in which they are. So you see it all the time. Bernie Sanders has like 4 or 5 vacation homes around the country and all this other stuff. So I don't, this nonsense of just like I said it earlier, the left never accuses the right of something the left isn't already doing.
Exactly.
So, but the next month is going to be fantastic. I want to see what happens especially into the summer with the whole new trade deals and everything. So we'll definitely keep you guys updated on that. But we want to thank you guys for joining us today in the Legislative Lounge. If you guys have any questions, please submit them online, and we'll definitely address them. But in the meantime, Mike, take us home.
Yep. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much to Radio DaBang and Mike Cohn, everybody at there for facilitating this great adventure for Nate and I to expand the Legislative Lounge and give us this great opportunity. If you haven't already, please follow us here on Radio DaBang on 99.5, and also follow Radio DaBang on Facebook, as well as the Legislative Lounge on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X, Twitch, and TikTok, as well as Natebige and Professor Mike. And until then, have a blessed day. See you next time.